Okay, morning, Erwin. Morning, Harvey. Okay, so I'm going to have just a quick review from the Mishnah that's on the bottom of Tzadi Bet Amud Beis, 92b, okay? And that will lead us right into the discussion on to 93, and we'll move on from there, okay? So our Mishnah again still deals with this question of measurement at number one. Number two, we will also raise the question of intent. But measurement seems to be the primary concern, particularly transferring from one domain to another. Right? Matnitin hamotzi kikar l'reshuta rabim, one who carries a loaf or a mass of something, right, into the public domain. Chayav is obligated, guilty. Hotziuhu shnayim, if two carry it out, pturin. Okay, why would two be exempt? Both of them be exempt? Okay, let's see. Lo yachol echad lahotzio, if one is not able to carry it out, vahotzio shnayim, and two of them do, chayavin. Then both of them are culpable. Okay. Rabbi Shimon poter, and Rabbi Shimon exempts them. Okay, let's clarify with the Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. This is Rav Yehuda, the name of Rav. Ba'amrei la Amar Abai. Another say it was Abai. Ba'amrei la b'matnita tam. Another say it was taught instead in a Braita. Right? Ze yechol v'ze yechol. Two people. One is able to carry it out by himself, and another also able to carry it out by himself. Rabbi Meir Mechayev. Rabbi Meir would then say that both people are culpable. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon potrin. And the two of them, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, exempt them. Second scenario. Ze eino yachol, v'ze eino yachol. Neither one of them would be able to carry the item out on their own, but the two together could do it. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir mechayvin. Then the two of the sages say they are both culpable. The Rabbi Shimon poter. But Rabbi Shimon in that case would say they're exempt, both of them. Third scenario, ze yachol v'ze eino yachol. One would be capable of carrying out on his own, the other would not. Yet two are the ones that carried it out. Divrei hakol chayav. According to everybody, they're both culpable. Tanya nami hachi, and we have a Braita that teaches this. Hamotzi kikar l'reshuta rabim chayav. One who carries out a large loaf or a mass, okay, would be chayav, right? Hotzi o shnayim, if two take it out. Rabbi Meir mechayev, says the Braita. Rabbi Meir says the person is culpable. But Rabbi Yehuda omer, and says Rabbi Yehuda, im lo yachol echad lahotzio, if one alone is not able to carry it out, vahotzio shnayim, and instead two carry it out, chayavin, they are both culpable. Ve'im lav, and if not, paturin, both would be exempt. Rabbi Shimon poter, and Rabbi Shimon would exempt them. Now, menahani mili, how do we know this? Okay, the Tanu Rabbanan, because the rabbis teach in a Braita, ba'asota, and if one sin in his doing, okay, in other words, the language seems to be in the singular. Ha'oseh et kula, right, that he does the entire act. In other words, he's capable of doing the entire act. That's what makes him culpable. V'lo ha'oseh et miktzata, and not one who only does it partially. Ketzad, how is it possible? Says the Braita, Shnayim shahayu ochazin b'malgaz. Let's assume we have two of them who are holding a pitchfork, v'logzin b'karkar, and they are gathering stalks, all right, with the pitchfork. V'shoftin b'kulmus. Or let's say that they are sweeping up corn together. Okay? V'kodvin b'kaneh. Or say they are using a shuttle, a loom, right? Some sort of thing, right? Or let's say they are writing with a quill. V'hotzi'o l'reshut harabim. Okay? And then they carry it out into the public domain, right? Yechol Yehu Chayavim. We might have thought that they are both culpable. Talmud Lomar, says the text, Ba'asota. Okay, the one who does it in his doing. Ha'oseh et kula, the one who does all of it. Below ha'oseh miktzata, but not, we say, the one who only does part of it. As we continue on Sadi Gimel on the top. Be'igul shel dveila. Let's assume that it's a large cake, round cake of figs, dried figs, which is very heavy, right? And it's not usual for a single person to be able to carry it out on his own, okay? V'hotzio l'reshut harabim, and he carries it out into the public domain, okay? B'korah, or let the person is carrying a beam of wood, v'hotzio l'reshut harabim, and he carries it out into the public domain. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, im lo yachol echad lahotzio, v'hotzio shnayim, chayavin. If one is not able to carry it out, so to speak, on his own, okay, but two are able to carry out, both would be considered culpable. V'im lav, if not, peturin, the two of them would therefore be exempt, right? Now what happens? Rabbi Shimon Omer, says Rabbi Shimon, af al pi shelo yechol echad lahotzio, even if one cannot carry it out on his own, okay? Right? Vahotz, right? Vahotziohu shnayim, and two of them carry it out, okay? Pturim, they are exempt. Lakach ne'amar, for that reason it was said ba'asota, okay? That Pasuk was saying in his doing, right? Yachid sha'asa'a chayav, says Rabbi Shimon. If one does the entire act and able to do it on his own, he is culpable. Shnayim sha'asa'oha peturin. Two do it, and they are exempt. Where do they differ? What are they arguing about? Bahaikra. They're arguing about the interpretation of the pasuk. Right? The following pasuk. Abriut. Right? Ve'im nefesh echad techta. Okay? Bishgaga me'am ha'aretz ba'asota. Okay? In English, and if one person of the common people shall sin unwittingly in his doing. Rabbi Shimon Svar, Tzlata Mi'ute Kative. Okay? Rabbi Shimon is saying that there are three I'm going to say limitations. Labriut. Okay? Right? In this case. Right? In determining the pasuk. Okay? Now, let's come back, look at the pasuk just for a second so we can understand the machloket. Okay? Ve'im nefesh echad techta. Nefesh echad might be one phrase. Echat techta might be a second phrase. Ba'asota might be a third phrase. Okay? So, Rabbi Shimon Savar tzlata me'ute kative. Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion, right, that there are these three limitations written, right? And this is how he darshans it, right? Nefesh echat, okay, namely, a person, right, is going to be, all right, echad, that's one. Techta, okay, right, is a second one. We'll do the sin, right? And ba'asota, right? Techta chad lema'ute ze okers b'ze maniach. Okay, implying that when one does the sin, it's the one who, right, excluding the one who both removes it and the one who places it. V'chad lema'ute ze yachol v'ze yachol. And one comes to exclude where one is able, and also one is able. So again, with two people doing it, that removes it because it says it had to be of one person. Bechad lema'ute, and one limitation, ze'eno yachol, v'ze'eno yachol, a situation where neither one on their own could carry it out, but only together. So that's where he gives the three limitations. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda, what does he say based on the pasuk? Chad lema'ute. Okay, one limitation. Ze oker v'ze maniach. Okay, that it comes to imply the same person uproots and puts it down. V'chad lema'ute ze yachol v'ze yachol. And one limitation comes to say that the two people carrying out, okay, together would be patur, because it means one would be able to do it on his own and one do it on his own. V'chad, and one limitation, lema'ute yachid she'asa'a b'hora'at beit din. And the third limitation, he says, is a situation where it excludes the individual who acts on the ruling of the Beit Din. In other words, the Beit Din, okay, is telling him, made a ruling, he followed the Beit Din, and therefore it's not his actual sin. It's the Beit Din's inappropriate decision. For Rabbi Shimon, and as far as Rabbi Shimon, Yachid she'asa'ah b'hora'at Beit Din chayav. According to him, that third exclusion of Rabbi Yehuda doesn't work, because even if the Beit Din made the decision and the person followed it, that person would still be culpable. Okay? Right? Because he would know, he has to know whether to follow the Beit Din's decision or not. The Rabbi Meir, and what about the view of Rabbi Meir? Mi kativ nefesh techteh, achat techteh, ba'asotah techteh. Does Rabbi Meir interpret the sections of the pasuk as three limitations? No, says the Gemara. Trei ma'ute kative. According to Rabbi Meir, there are only two limitations in the pasuk. Okay? In other words, he does not, going back to look at the pasuk for a minute, he doesn't say that it's nefesh techteh, achat techteh, ba'asotah, three sections, right? Namely, what does Rabbi Meir say? Chad lema'ute ze oker v'ze maniach. One, to limit or exclude, okay, where it has to be the same person uprooting and putting down. And the second exclusion, v'chad lema'ute yachid she'asa'a b'hora'at beit din. And the other to exclude the individual who carried out the act based on the decision of the court. Right? And what happens? V'chad lema'ute yachid she'asa'a b'hora'at beit din. That was his second exclusion. Okay. Now, our Gemara, okay, is going to go on now to clarify the various steps that we saw of the earlier Braita. He said, remember that one step was the two people, each of them could have carried it out on their own, but they carried it out together. Okay? Another step was two people. And in this case, we could say that one alone couldn't carry it out, but the two could. All right. So picking up there, Amar Mar, one of the masters said, Ze yachol v'ze eino yachol. Okay. One would be able to carry it on his own, and the second would not be able to carry it on his own. What happens? Divrei hakol chayav. Everybody seems to agree that both would be culpable in that situation with the two carrying it out on Shabbos to the public domain. So the Gemara asks a question. Hai minai hu mechayev? Which one of them is culpable? Amar Rav Chisda, Zeh sheyachol, the one who would be capable of doing it on his own, says Rav Chisda. De'i Zeh she'eino yachol, because if we're talking about the one who could not do it on his own, Mai ka'avid, right? What would he would do, right? Amar le Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna answers to him, Deka Messiah Behedya, because he is explicitly helping him, right? Amar le Messiah, so Rav Chisda's answer, Messiah ein bo mamash. Okay? That helping him is not really a concrete act. And therefore, why in that case should he be considered culpable? Now, Gemara is going to pick up on this motif, okay, a little bit, and continue, and bring a number of challenges to this statement of Rav Chisda, whether or not Messiah ein bo mamash. First challenge, okay? Amar Rav Zevid Mishmei de Rabba. Says Rav Zevid in the name of Rabba, right? Ananami Tanina. So we also learned, right? In the following case, let's assume you have a Zav, right? Haya yoshev al gabe hamita. And the Zav is sitting on the bed. Va'aba taliot tachat raglei hamita. And there are 4 pieces of cloth or cloaks or garments underneath the feet of the bed. Tmeot, they become tamei. Mepnei she'ena yechola la'amod al shalosh. Why? Because all 4 legs help the bed stand, and the bed is not able to remain on 3 legs. And therefore, the tuma of the zav affects the bed, which affects the cloths that are underneath the feet of the bed. Okay? The Rabbi Shimon Matahir. But Rabbi Shimon is going to say that it is tahor, right? That since none of the legs do the work alone, okay, but they all, so to speak, help each other, and if we say Messiah ein bo mamash, therefore those pieces of cloth should be tahor. Let's take another example, says the Gemara. The Zav again. Haya rochev al gabe behema. He's riding on an animal. Right? Va'arba tliot tachat raglei habehema. And for the moment, the Zav on the horse, there are 4 cloths under the feet of the horse. Right? What happens? Tahorot. They are tahor. They are clean. Mipnei sheyichola la'amod al shlosha. Why? Because the horse is able to stand on 3 of its 4 legs. Va'amai, asks the Gemara. Why is that so? Ha kamisayea bahade hadade. Isn't it such that the legs help one another to support the horse? Lam mishum da amrinan misayea ein bo mamash. Is it not because we do say that if it simply assists it, okay, it is not something tangible? Amar Rav Yehuda midiskarta. So Rav Yehuda midiskarta says the following: Le'olam emelach mesayea yesh bo mamash. I would say to you that where there is support, okay, it is a concrete act. All right, it is something. Okay, Vishani hacha, but it's different here. Excuse me. Why? Da'akara la lagamre, because the horse is capable of lifting its leg, all right, removing its foot entirely off the ground. V'kevan dezimnin akra ha, and since at times it will lift its foot off the ground, v'zimnin akraha, and other times lift another foot off the ground, lahave kezav hamitapech. It would be similar to a situation of a zav who turns over, okay, lying on the bed. By shifting support from one side to another, okay, it implies that therefore, in that way, all the legs of the bed do result in a transfer of tuma. Okay. Me lo tanan, says the Gemara, but didn't we learn in another Braita, Zav shahaya mutal al chamesh safsalim, that if we have a Zav who's lying on 5 benches, o al chamisha pundaot, or he's lying on 5 hollow money belts, the orchan, stretched out on the bed, tme'in, they become unclean. The rachvan, but if they were lying in an opposite direction, okay, not across, but down, right, lengthwise, right, tahorim, okay, they are tahor. Yashan safek, okay, if he's sleeping, right, and there is a doubt, mitapech alehen me'im, and there's a doubt whether he turned over upon them, okay, they are unclean. Ela lav mishum da amrinan. Is it not in that situation because we do say Messiah ein bo mamash, that we must be saying then that this helping is not a concrete act. It's not supporting. Amar Rav Papa, Mishmei de Rava. And so Rav Papa says, in the name and the authority of Rabbah, of Anan Nami Tanina. So we also learn this. Okay? And he also brings another challenge as we continue. On Amud Beis, Rabbi Yossi Omer, says Rabbi Yossi again, dealing with the Zav on the horse. Asus mitame al yadav, that in this case, the horse, okay, can transfer tuma through its forefeet. B'hachamor al raglav, and a riding on a donkey transfers the tuma on its hind legs. Shemish enet hasus al yadav, v'chamor al raglav. Why? He says, because the horse places its primary weight on the front legs, whereas the donkey places its primary weight on its hind legs. Va'amai, and why is that the case? Ha kamasayeya bahade hadade, don't one set of legs assist and help the other set of legs? Love is not mishum da amrinan misayeya ein bo mamash. Isn't it not because we say that where there's assistance, it's no concrete act? Okay? Again, now, Amar Rav Ashi. Says Rav Ashi, again on this issue. Af anan nami tanina. So we also learned. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, says Rabbi Eliezer, Raglo echat al hakeli. Let's assume that we're now talking about a Kohen in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay? And he's got 1 foot on the stone floor and 1 foot on a utensil. Okay? What happens then? Raglo echat al hakeli. 1 foot is on a utensil. Veraglo echat al haratzpa. And 1 foot is on the pavement. Right? Raglo echat al ha'evan. Or let's say he has 1 foot on a stone. Okay? Veraglo echat al haritzpa. And 1 foot on the pavement again. Ro'im kol she'ilu yinatel hakli. Okay? All then of the sages say that we examine this situation. Okay? We look at the situation, all right, in such a manner, all right, that if we were to take away the utensil, vatina tail, and you remove it, okay, ha'even yach, right, or we remove the utensil, or remove the stone, right, yachol la'amod al raglo echat, okay, and say that he would therefore be able to stand on 1 foot, avodato kshera. Okay, in that case, his service is valid. Right? In other words, in that case, we're saying then that, again, we're saying that Messiah is not a concrete act. Ve'im lav avodato psula. And if not, okay, then his worship is invalid. Again, implying that message that Messiah, okay, ein bo mamash. Ba'amai, why? Asks the Gemara. Ha miska Messiah bahade hadade. Here, don't one help the other, support the other? Lav mishum da amrinan. Isn't it because we say Messiah ein bo mamash, that we support, that we maintain this principle that assisting is not really a concrete act? Again, another challenge. Amar Ravina, says Ravina. Af ananami tanina, so we also learned. Kibel biyamin usmo masa'aito. Again, dealing with a Kohen now, who after the animal is shechted, the blood spurts out, and he's holding the utensil. Remember, he's supposed to hold it, we learned, in his right hand, but the left hand is sort of assisting. So, right? Avadato kshera. Okay, his service, all right, is valid. Va'amai, why? Hakamisayeh bahade hadade. Don't we say then in that situation that his 2 hands are assisting one another? Lav mishum da amrinan. Isn't it not because we say Mistayeh ein bo mamash, that we say that when it's assisting one to another, it's not really a concrete act? Shma mina. Indeed, that's what we learn from this. Okay, we go on now to another part of our earliest Braita. We said, what about if it's the following? Amar mar, the master said, Zeyachol v'zeyachol. This one is able to carry it out on his own, and this one able to carry it out on his own, but they do it together. Rabbi Meir Mechayev. Rabbi Meir says they are both culpable. So we ask the following question, right? Ba'inin shi'ur lazeh v'shi'ur lazeh. Do we say that each one of the participants carrying the item needs to be carrying the minimum standard measurement? O dilma, or perhaps shi'ur echad l'kulam? Or do we say that because the two of them together, okay, are carrying the item, and the item in and of itself is the minimum standard measurement? What's the situation? Rav Chisda v'Rav Himnuna, the two of them, have machloket. Chad amar shi'ur lezeh v'shi'ur lezeh. One says it had to be a minimum standard measurement for each of the participants. Chad amar shi'ur echad l'kulan. And the other said it has to be simply the minimum shi'ur for all of them. Amar Rav Papa Mishmei de Rava. And so Rav Papa says, now in the name of Rava, Af anan nami tanina. So we also learned this in the following. Let's take again our example of the Zav. Haya yoshev al gabe mita. The Zav that's reclining, sitting on the bed, right? And what happens? Va'arba talihot tachat arba raglei hamita. And there are 4 cloths underneath the 4 legs of the bed. Tmeot. These cloths are become defiled. Mipnei she'ein yuchala la'amod al shalosh. Because the bed is not able to simply stand on 3 legs. Va'amai. And why is that the case? Labai shi'ur ziva lazeh v'shi'ur ziva lazeh. If that's the case, why don't we require that the amount of defilement of the zav be on each of the 4, over each of the 4 legs of the bed? Right? Lav mishum da'amrina. Isn't it because we say shi'ur echad l'kulan, that we say that there is that minimum amount for all of them? Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Af anan nami tnina. So we also learn the following. Tzvi shenichnas labayit. If a deer comes into the house, v'na'al echad b'fanav, and it's on Shabbat, and one of the inhabitants of the house locks the door behind the deer, chayav, that person is culpable. Na'alu shnayim, if 2 people lock the door, pturin, then they are both, exempt. Lo yachol echad l'n'ol. Right? If we say one is not able to lock it, v'na'alu shnayim, and 2 lock it, chayavim, then both are culpable. Va'amai, and why is that the case? Lebai shi'ur tzida lazeh, v'shi'ur tzida lazeh. Shouldn't we require then the minimum standard for hunting for this one, and the minimum standard measurement for hunting for this one? Lav mishum da'amrina. Isn't it because we say shi'ur echad l'kulam, that there's one minimum standard for the 2 of them? Amar Ravina. So Ravina says, Af ananami tanina. So here too, says Ravina, we also learned hashutafin, 2 partners, shiganvu v'tavchu. Okay, if they steal, right, and then they slaughter an animal, an ox or a sheep, both are culpable. Va'amai, and why? Libai shi'ur tvicha lazeh, v'shi'ur tvicha lazeh. Shouldn't we require the minimum standard for this one and the minimum standard for this one? Lav mishum de amrina. Isn't it because we say shi'ur echad lekulam, that there is one standard measure for the slaughtering for the two of them? Okay? Va'amar Rav Ashi. So the one standard suffices. Now, Rav Ashi says, Af ananami tanina. So we also learned following. Shnayim shahotziu kaneh shel gardi. If you have two people who carry out the, let's call it the, I'm going to call it, it's like a quill or a cane, okay? It's a piece of equipment that goes on the lower warp of a beam of a loom, okay? So it's like a long pole, right? That's on the bottom of the loom, right? By which they use, the weaver uses to deal with the warp, right? Chayavin, both are to be considered culpable. Va'amai, why? Libai shi'ur hotza'ah lazeh, v'shi'ur hotza'ah lazeh. Shouldn't we require the minimum standard of carrying out for this one and the minimum standard for carrying out for this one? Lav mishum da'amrinan, isn't it because we say shi'ur echad lekulam, one standard applies to all of them? Now, Amar le Rav Acha, Berei de Rava le Rav Ashi, and Rav Acha, the son of Rava, said to Rav Ashi, okay, the following: Dilma de eat be kadei levashel beitza kala lazeh ubeitza kala lazeh. Okay, maybe we say in that case, all right, that you're talking about this piece of wood, okay, that's part of the loom, right? That piece of wood is a different measurement, okay? And namely, that it's small enough, okay, to be able to use it to cook a small egg for this one and a small egg for this one. In Cain, he says, if that's the case, le'ishme'inan kana da'alma. Okay, so why didn't you teach it then in terms of just a small piece of wood, a small piece of cane or quill, right? Ma'ishana degardi. So what's so unique that you used in your example that it be part of the loom of the weaver? V'dilma it be shnei kadei la'arog mipelezeh. Right? Perhaps, okay, all right, we'll say that the piece of wood or the cane was large enough to weave a cloth with it, right? Kadei la'arog mapa lezeh, u'kadei la'arog mapa lezeh, right? That it was large enough to weave a, let's say, a certain size piece of cloth. Elameha lekela mashma mina. Therefore, from that example, we're not able to use that as an example to bring proof. So, the Gemara now tells us, Tani Tana Kame de Rav Nachman, that there was a Tana, okay, who then recited before Rav Nachman the following: Shnayim shahotziu kaneh shel garde. Okay, two people who remove into another domain the kaneh, the reed or the piece of wood, lower piece for the weaver's loom. Okay, Pturin are exempt. The Rabbi Shimon mechayev, but Rabbi Shimon says they're culpable. Klape laye, okay? Okay, where does this take us? Ela ema, I would say, chayavin, that they are both culpable. The Rabbi Shimon poter, and Rabbi Shimon exempts them. And now that finishes that particular inyan. We'll start this new Mishnah and go over a little bit as well. Okay. Remember, we're still dealing with this whole issue of transferring, carrying out certain measurements of items from one domain to another on Shabbat. Okay. Now, here's our case, says the Mishnah. Hamotzi ochlin. One is carrying out food. Okay. Pachot mikashior, less than the normal measure for food. Remember, which we said usually was a kigrogeret, the size of a bulk figs amount. Bikli, in a utensil, patur, says the Mishnah, is exempt. Af al hakli, even with the utensil, shahakli tfela lo, because the utensil is subsidiary or secondary to the food. Okay. Second case, et hachai b'mita, if one is carrying out a living person on a bed, okay, let's say a cot, something like that, okay, patur, exempt. Af al hamita, even though carrying the person out on the cot, on the bed, shahamita tfela lo, because the cot, the bed, is secondary, subsidiary to him. Et hamet b'mita, if one, however, is carrying out a deceased person, a corpse, on a mita, on a bed, on a stretcher, for example. Let's use that example. Chayav, they would be culpable. L'chein kezayit min hamet, and likewise, even if one only carried out a olive amount of flesh from a corpse, ukezayit min hanavela, or an olive amount of nevela from the body of a nevela, right, dead animal. Uke'adasha min hasheretz, or even a lentils amount from a creeping thing. Chayav would be culpable. Rabbi Shimon poter, and Rabbi Shimon says they are exempt. Now, Gemara says, our Gemara, what's the situation? By the way, Rabbi Shimon there, okay, holds from a unique perspective that he says he's exempt. Okay, why? Because Rabbi Shimon's view really applies to the corpse, right? In other words, he's saying it's not done for its own purpose. Okay, it's done for another purpose. Let's say clean the house, okay, or to remove if there was an illness, things like that. Right? So we're going to get to that point shortly. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Breita. Right? Hamotzi ochlin keshiur. Our Breita teaches that if one, right, carries out foodstuffs of the minimum shiur, im bekli, with a utensil, chayav al ha'ochlin, one is guilty in carrying out the foodstuffs, patur al hakli, and exempt on the utensil. V'im hayakli tzarich lo, and if he had necessity, a requirement, need for the utensil, chayav af al hakli, then he would also be culpable on the utensil. Shmamina, we learn from this, all right, it would appear, ochel shnei zeitei chelev be'elem echad, that if one ate 2 olive-sized pieces of forbidden fat, chelev, in a single awareness, right, chayav shtayim, that he ought to be right, guilty and have to bring 2 chatas offerings if he did it b'shogeg. Amar Rav Sheshet, so says Rav Sheshet, hachi b'mayi iskinim, what are we talking about then? Kigon sheshagag al ha'ochlin, okay? Vehezid al hakli. That has to be a situation, okay, where he was inadvertently, okay, wrong about bringing the food, but he did it deliberately in regards to the utensil, okay? Therefore, what would happen? If he's that case, he would bring a chayav, a chatas, for the food, but he would be over because it was mazid on the kli, he would get the punishment of koreh for the kli. Now, we're going to see a quick challenge in a moment. Matkifla Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi challenges this. Baha, af al hakli katani, but it says specifically in respect to the utensil as well. Ela amar Rav Ashi. Says Rav Ashi, kagon sheshagag bazeh ubazeh. No, it must be a situation where he sinned unwittingly, both in regards to the food and in regards to the utensil. V'nodalo, okay? And then afterwards he became aware of it. V'chazar v'nodalo. And then afterwards he became aware of the other. Ubeplugted the Rabbi Yochanan, the Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. And this is dependent upon the argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, okay, where Rabbi Yochanan says he would have to bring 2 chataot, since he became aware of it in succession, and make atonement for each of the acts, right? But Reish Lakish said he would only have to bring 2 offerings, 2 sacrifices, okay? And then if he's aware of the one, he does that, and then only much later would he have to bring a second one if he became aware of that one. And we're going to stop right there at this point, and we'll pick up tomorrow. Okay, guys? Everybody stay well, okay, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day, Rabbi.
Okay, bye-bye.
So long.